McDonnell Douglas MD-11. The McDonnell Douglas MD-11 is an American trijet, wide-body airliner manufactured by American McDonnell Douglas MDC and later by Boeing. Following DC-10 development studies, the MD-11 program was launched on December 30, 1986. Assembly of the first prototype began on March 9, 1988. It rolled out in September 1989 and made its maiden flight on January 10, 1990. FAA certification was achieved on November 8. The first delivery was to Finnair on December 7, 1990, and it entered service on December 20. It retains the basic trijet configuration of the DC-10 with updated GE CF6-80C2 or PW4000 turbofan engines. It has a slightly wider wing with winglets, and its MTOW was increased by 14% to 630,500 lb 286t. Its fuselage is stretched by 11% to 202 ft 61.6 m to accommodate 298 passengers in 3 classes over a range of up to 7,130 nmi 13,200 km. It features a glass cockpit that eliminates the need for a flight engineer. The MD-11 failed to meet its range and fuel burn targets. The last of 200 aircraft was built in October 2000 after Boeing merged with MDC in 1997. Some MD-11 freighters were built, but many more are converted MD-11 passenger aircraft, many of which are still in service with cargo airlines. Development origins. Although the MD-11 program was launched in 1986, McDonnell Douglas had started to search for a DC-10 derivative as early as 1976. 2 versions were considered then, a DC-10-10 with a fuselage stretch of 40 feet 12 m and a DC-10-30 stretched by 30 feet 9.1 m. The latter version would have been capable of transporting up to 340 passengers in a multi-class configuration, or 277 passengers and their luggage over 5,000. At the same time, the manufacturer was seeking to reduce wing and engine drag on the trijet. Another version of the aircraft was also envisaged, the DC-10 Global, aimed to counter the risks of loss of orders for the DC-10-30 that the Boeing 747 SP and its range were causing. The DC-10 Global would have incorporated more fuel tanks. While continuing their research for a new aircraft, McDonnell Douglas designated the program DC-10 Super 60, previously known for a short time as DC-10 Super 50. The Super 60 was to be an intercontinental aircraft incorporating many aerodynamic improvements in the wings and a fuselage lengthened by 26 feet 8 inches 8.13 m to allow for up to 350 passengers to be seated in a mixed-class layout, compared to 275 in the same configuration of the DC-10. Following more refinements, in 1979, the DC-10 Super 60 was proposed in 3 distinct versions, like the DC-8. The DC-10-61 was designed to be a high-capacity medium-range aircraft. It would have a fuselage stretch of 40 feet 12 m over the earlier DC-10 models, enabling it to carry 390 passengers in a mixed class or 550 passengers in an all-economy layout, similar to Boeing's later 777-300 and Airbus A340-600. Like the DC-8, the Series 62 was proposed for long-range routes. It would feature a more modest fuselage stretch of 26 ft7 in 8.10 m, along with an increased wingspan and fuel capacity. It would be capable of carrying up to 350 passengers mixed class or 440 passengers all economy, similar to the later Boeing 777-200 or the Airbus F330-300/A340-300/500. Finally, the Series 63 would have incorporated the same fuselage as the DC-10-61, as well as the larger wing of the -62. After high-profile accidents in the 1970s, such as Turkish Airlines Flight 981 and American Airlines Flight 191, the trijet's reputation was seriously damaged by doubts regarding its structural integrity. For these reasons, and due to a downturn in the airline industry, all work on the Super 60 was stopped. In 1981, a Continental Airlines DC-10-10 registration number N68048 was leased to conduct more research, particularly the effects the newly designed winglets would have on aircraft performance. Different types of winglets were tested during that time in conjunction with NASA. McDonnell Douglas was again planning new DC-10 versions that could incorporate winglets and more efficient engines developed at the time by Pratt & Whitney PW2037 and Rolls-Royce RB211-535 F4. The manufacturer finally rationalized all these studies under the MDE Ecology Economy Efficiency designation. That was later modified to the MD-100 following some more changes. The MD-100 was proposed in two versions, the Series 10 having an airframe shorter by 6 ft6 in 1.98 m compared to the DC-10 and seating up to 270 passengers in a mixed-class configuration, and the Series 20, incorporating a fuselage stretch of 20 ft6 in 6.25 m. Both versions could be powered by the same engine families as the actual MD-11 plus the RB211-600. However, the situation for the manufacturer and the airline industry in general did not look bright. No new DC-10 orders were received, and many among the observers and customers doubted that the manufacturer would stay in business much longer. Thus, the board of directors decided in November 1983 to once again cease all work on the projected new trijet. The following year, no new orders for the DC-10 were received. The production line was kept active thanks to earlier orders from the U.S. Air Force for 60 KC-10 tankers. McDonnell Douglas was still convinced that a new derivative for the DC-10 was needed, as shown by the second-hand market for their Series 30 and the heavier DC-10-30ER version. Thus, in 1984, a new derivative aircraft version of the DC-10 was designated MD-11. From the very beginning, the MD-11X was conceived in two different versions. The MD-11X-10, based on a DC-10-30 airframe, offered a range of 6,500 nautical miles, 12,000 km with passengers. That first version would have had a maximum takeoff weight MTOW of 580,000 pounds, 260,000 kg, and would have used CF6-80C2 or PW4000 engines. The MD-11X-20 was to have a longer fuselage, accommodating up to 331 passengers in a mixed-class layout, and a range of 6,000 nautical miles, 11,000 km. As more orders for the DC-10 were received, McDonnell Douglas used the time gained before the end of DC-10 production to consult with potential customers and to refine the proposed new trijet. In July 1985, the board of directors authorized the Long Beach plant to offer the MD-11 to potential customers. At the time, the aircraft was still proposed in two versions, both with the same fuselage length, a stretch of 22 ft3 in 6.78 m over the DC-10 airframe, as well as the same engine choice as the MD-11X. One version would have a range of 4,780 nautical miles, 8,850 km, with a gross weight of 500,000 pounds, 230,000 kg, and transport up to 337 passengers, while the second would carry 331 passengers over 6,900 nautical miles, 12,000. A year later, as several airlines had committed to the MD-11, the situation was looking optimistic. The aircraft was now a 320-seater baseline and defined as an 18 ft7 in 5.66 m stretch over the DC-10-30 powered by the new advanced turbofans offered by the major NG. Other versions, such as a shortened ER with a range of 7,500 nautical miles 13,900 km, an all-cargo offering a maximum payload of 200,970 pounds 91,160 kg, and a combi with a provision for 10 freight pallets on the main deck were proposed. Further growth of the aircraft was also foreseen, such as the MD-11 Advanced. A lack of innovation from McDonnell Douglas during the MD-11's design had been attributed to the company's declining cash flow, as it struggled with problems with its military contracts and declining orders for its commercial jets. Limited company resources resulting in the MD-11 being developed as a refinement of the existing DC-10, in contrast to rivals Airbus and Boeing, who during this time period developed all new aircraft designs that would become the Airbus A330/A340 and Boeing 777. As a trijet, the MD-11 was less fuel efficient, but had a greater range than its mid-size wide-body contemporaries, which were twinjets, the existing Boeing 767 and upcoming Airbus A300. Aerospace consultant Scott Hamilton, in a 2014 article, said that the MD-11 was classically ill-timed as it came at the end of the 3 or 4 engine era, just ahead of the real move to ETOPS with the 777. McDonnell Douglas's initiative to outsource everything but design, final assembly, and flight testing and sales of the MD-11 was also seen as contributing to the end of their commercial airline business. Launch and costs. On December 30, 1986, McDonnell Douglas launched the MD-11 with commitments for 52 firm orders and 40 options in 3 different versions: passenger, combi and freighter from 10 airlines: Alitalia, British Caledonian, Dragonair, Federal Express, Finnair, Korean Air, Scandinavian Airlines. Orders from Dragonair, Scandinavian, and UTA, an undisclosed customer, were cancelled by 1988. In 1987, the program was to cost $1.05 billion, with $500 million for development and almost $1 billion for tooling and inventory, and the first 52 firm orders totaled $5 billion, $95 million each, while the A340 sold for $67 million. At certification in 1990, $2.05 billion were invested in initial production inventory and $700 million for engineering, tools, and flight testing. While it was selling for $100 million, the initial MD-11 jets cost $120 to $150 million to produce, but this was to reduce to $90 million with manufacturing experience over the program life for an less than the 15% to 20% Boeing obtains. In 1992, the $1.07 billion development cost was to be spread over the first 301 produced for $100 million each. In 1995, because costs and revenues could not be reasonably estimated over the program life, MDD took a pre-tax charge of $1.838 billion for deferred production costs and for reduced support and tooling value. In 1999, unit cost was $132 minus $147.05 million, equivalent to $194 minus $217 million in 2019 dollars. Production and performance issues. Assembly of the first MD-11 began on March 9, 1988, and the mating of the fuselage with wings occurred in October that year. The first flight was originally planned to occur in March 1989, but numerous problems with the manufacturing, delays with suppliers producing essential components, and labor industrial actions delayed the ceremonial roll-out of the prototype until September of that year. The following months were used to prepare the prototype for its maiden flight, which finally happened on January 10, 1990. The first 2 aircraft manufactured were intended for FedEx and thus were already fitted with the forward side cargo door. They remained with the manufacturer as test aircraft until 1991, before being completely converted to freighters and delivered to their customer. FAA certification was achieved on November 8, 1990, while the European Joint Aviation Authorities JAA certified the MD-11 on October 17, 1991, after approximately 200 separate issues were resolved. Fuselage sections for the DC-10, KC-10, and MD-11 were built by General Dynamics Conveyor Division. Yugoslav Airlines, already flying several DC-10s, became the first customer of the MD-11. 3 aircraft were manufactured but were never delivered due to the Yugoslav wars. The first MD-11 was delivered to Finnair on December 7, 1990, and it accomplished the first revenue service by an MD-11 on December 20, 1990, carrying passengers from Helsinki to Tenerife in the Canary Islands. MD-11 service in the U.S. was inaugurated by Delta Air Lines the following year. It was during this period that flaws in the MD-11's performance became apparent. It failed to meet its targets for range and fuel burn. American Airlines in particular was unimpressed with the 19 MD-11s that it received, as was Singapore Airlines, who cancelled their order for 20 MD-11s and instead ordered 20 Airbus A340-300s. American Airlines cited problems with the performance of the engines and airframe, while Singapore Airlines stated that the MD-11 could not operate on the airline's long-haul routes. Pre-flight estimates indicated that the PNW-powered MD-11 was to have a 7,000 nautical miles 13,000 km range with 61,000 pounds 28,000 kg of payload. With the Phase 1 drag reduction in place then, the aircraft could only achieve its full range with 48,500 pounds 22,000 kg of payload, or a reduced range of 6,493 nautical miles 12,025 km with a full payload. In 1990, McDonnell Douglas, along with Pratt & Whitney and General Electric, began a modification program known as the Performance Improvement Program, PIP, to improve the aircraft's weight, fuel capacity, engine performance, and aerodynamics. McDonnell Douglas worked with NASA's Langley Research Center to study aerodynamic improvements. The PIP lasted until 1995 and recovered the range for the aircraft. However, by this point sales of the MD-11 had already been significantly impacted. In 1995, American Airlines sold their 19 MD-11s to FedEx, as the PIP program was not sufficient for the aircraft to fly the DFW Hong Kong route. After McDonnell Douglas merged with Boeing in 1997, the unified company decided that MD-11 production would continue exclusively with the freighter variant. In 1998, Boeing announced it would end MD-11 production after filling orders on hand. The last passenger MD-11 built was delivered to Cessna in April 1998. Assembly of the last 2 MD-11s were completed in August and October 2000. They were delivered to Lufthansa Cargo on February 22 and January 25, 2001, respectively. Production ended because of lack of sales, resulting from internal competition from the Boeing 767-400 and Boeing 777, as well as external competition from the Airbus A330/A340. McDonnell Douglas performed studies on the feasibility of removing the tail engine to make a twin-engine jet, but nothing came of it. McDonnell Douglas originally projected that it would sell more than 300 MD-11 aircraft. The MD-11 was assembled at McDonnell Douglas's Douglas Products division in Long Beach, California, later Boeing's facility. Design. The MD-11 is a medium to long-range wide-body airliner with 2 engines mounted on underwing pylons and a third engine at the base of the vertical stabilizer. It is based on the DC-10, but features a stretched fuselage, increased wingspan with winglets, refined airfoils on the wing and tailplane, new engines, and increased use of composites. The winglets are credited with improving fuel efficiency by about 2.5%. The MD-11 has a smaller empennage than the DC-10 it is based upon. The MD-11 features a two-crew cockpit that incorporates 6 interchangeable CRT units and advanced Honeywell VIA 2000 computers. The cockpit design is called Advanced Common Flight Deck ACF and is shared with the Boeing 717. Flight deck features include an electronic instrument system, a dual flight management system, a central fault display system, and global positioning system. Category E of automatic landing capability for bad weather operations and future air navigation systems are available. The MD-11 was one of the first commercial designs to employ a computer-assisted pitch stability augmentation system that featured a fuel ballast tank in the tailplane and a partly computer-driven horizontal stabilizer. Updates to the software package made the airplane's handling characteristics in manual flight similar to those of the DC-10, despite a smaller tailplane, to reduce drag and increase fuel efficiency. The MD-11 incorporates hydraulic fuses not included in the initial DC-10 design to prevent catastrophic loss of control in event of hydraulic failure. Variants. The MD-11 was manufactured in 5 variants. MD-11 131 built. The passenger variant was produced from 1988 to 1998. It was the first version on offer at the aircraft's launch in 1986 and was delivered to American Airlines 19, Delta Air Lines 17, Swissair 16, Japan Airlines 10, KLM 10, and other airlines with fewer aircraft. MD-11 C5 built. This combi aircraft was the third variant on offer at launch in 1986 and was designed to accommodate both passengers and freight on the main deck, which featured a rear cargo compartment for up to 10 pallets, each measuring 88 by 125 inches 2.2 mx 3.2 m or 96 by 125 inches 2.4 mx 3.2 m. The main deck cargo compartment was accessible by a large rear port side cargo door which measured 160 by 102 inches 4.1 mx 2.6 m. The main deck cargo volume was 10,904 cubic feet 308.8 and 3. Additional freight was also carried in below-deck compartments. The MD-11C could also be configured as an all-passenger aircraft. All 5 aircraft were manufactured between 1991 and 1992 and delivered to Alitalia, the only customer for that variant. In 2005 and 2006, the airline converted them to full freighter configurations to be operated by Alitalia's cargo division. Following that division's closure, the 5 aircraft were returned to their lessor in January 2009. MD-11 CF6 built. The convertible freighter variant was launched in 1991 by an order from Finnair for 3 aircraft plus 2 options. The MD-11 CF feature a large forward port side cargo door 140 by 102 inches 3.6 mx 2.6 m located between the first 2 passenger doors and can be used in an all-passenger or in an all-cargo configuration. As a freighter, it can transport 26 pallets of the same dimensions 88 by 125 inches 2.2 mx 3.2 m or 96 by 125 inches 2.4 mx 3.2 m. As for the MD-11C and MD-11F for a main deck cargo volume of 14,508 cubic feet 410.8 m3 and offers a maximum payload of 196,928 pounds 89,325 kg. All 6 MD-11CF were delivered to Finnair 4 and World Airways 2 during 1995. The 2 World Airways aircraft were converted to freight only in 2002. MD-11 ER5 built. The extended range version was launched by the manufacturer at the Singapore Air Show in February 1994. The MD-11ER incorporates all the Performance Improvement Program PIP options, including a maximum takeoff weight of 630,500 pounds, 286,000 kg, and an extra fuel tank of 3,000 US gallons, 11,000 L in the forward cargo hold to offer a range of 7,240 nautical miles, 13,410 km, an increase of 400 nautical miles, 740 km, over the standard passenger variant. MD-11ER were delivered between 1995 and 1997 to Garuda Indonesia 3 and World Airways 2. As of February 2007, only one Finnair MD-11ER has been converted to MD-11 with the removal of the extra fuel tank. MD-11 F-53 built. The freight transport aircraft was the second variant on offer at launch in 1986 and was the last and longest 1988-2000 manufactured version. The all-cargo aircraft features the same forward port side cargo door, 140 by 102 inches, 3.6 m x 2.6 m as the MD-11CF, a main deck volume of 15,530 cubic feet, 440 and 3, a maximum payload 200,151 pounds, 90,787 kg, and can transport 26 pallets of the same dimensions, 88 by 125 inches, 2.2 m or 96 by 125 inches, 2.4 m x 3.2 m. As for the MD-11C and MD-11CF, the MD-11F was delivered between 1991 and 2001 to FedEx Express 22, Lufthansa Cargo 14, and other airlines with fewer aircraft. MD-11 Boeing converted freighter BCF. Boeing and its group of international affiliates offer a conversion of used passenger airliners into freighters. The MD-11 BCF is one of the models offered. Note, some or all the features of the MD-11ER, including the higher MTOW of 630,500 lb, 286,000 kg. Part or all of the PIP aerodynamic improvements packages and composite panels were fitted to later built MD-11s except the extra fuel tank, and could be retrofitted to any of the variants. Some airlines, such as Finnair, Martinair, and FedEx, have made the structural changes required to allow their aircraft to have the higher MTOW. Swissair's 16 newly delivered aircraft were retrofitted with all the features except for the extra fuel tank, and were so designated MD-11AH for advanced heavy. Undeveloped variants. After ending the MD-12 program, McDonnell Douglas focused on 300-400-seat MD-11 derivatives. At the 1996 Farnborough International Air Show, the company presented plans for a new trijet with high seating and long range named MD-20. It was offered in the MD-20 Stretch and MD-20 LR versions. The MD-20 Stretch version was to have a longer fuselage than the MD-11 and seat 375 in a typical three-class arrangement. The MD-20 LR was to have a longer range and be the same length as the MD-11. It was to have typical three-class seating for 309. However, the MDC Board of Directors decided to end the MD-20 program in October 1996 because the financial investment was too large for the company. Operators. As of July 2019, the worldwide fleet of MD-11s totals 118 aircraft in commercial service with cargo operators FedEx Express 55, UPS Airlines 37, Lufthansa Cargo 12, Western Global Airlines 11, and other operators with fewer aircraft. Most of the airlines who ordered the MD-11 for their long-haul passenger flights had replaced it with Airbus A330, A340, and Boeing 777 aircraft by the end of 2004. Some carriers converted their MD-11s to freighters, such as China Eastern Airlines and Korean Air. Korean Air announced as early as December 1994 its intention to convert its five-passenger MD-11s to freighters for medium-range cargo routes. In 1995, American Airlines agreed to sell its 19 aircraft to FedEx, with the first MD-11 being transferred in 1996. Japan Airlines JL announced the replacement of its 10 MD-11s in 2000. These aircraft were being converted into freighters and sold to UPS in 2004. In February 2007, Tianlin Has Areas began operating the first of three leased passenger MD-11s in a deal arranged by Boeing as an interim solution for TAM to quickly be able to operate newly granted intercontinental routes while waiting for four Boeing 777-300ER to be. The last MD-11 was retired from TAM fleet in July 2009, which ended its use by Brazilian airlines Varig, VASP, and TAM. In May 2007, Finnair announced the sale of their last two MD-11s to Aeroflot Cargo. KLM was the last airline to operate scheduled passenger flights with the passenger version of the MD-11. The final scheduled flight took place on October 26, 2014 from Montreal to Amsterdam, followed by three special round-trip flights on November 11, 2014. Two MD-11s were also operated in a VIP configuration, one by Saudi Royal Flight for members of the royal family, and one by Mid-East Jet for Asako Aviation. Both are now stored. Accidents and incidents. As of June 2017, the MD-11 has been involved in 30 aviation incidents, including 9 hull loss accidents with 244 fatalities. Notable accidents and incidents. On April 6, 1993, China Eastern Airlines Flight 583, an MD-11 went into severe oscillations when a crew member accidentally deployed the slats during cruise flight over the Pacific Ocean near the Aleutian Islands. 2 passengers were seriously injured and later died. On July 31, 1997, FedEx Express Flight 14 MD-11 and 611 FE crashed during a landing at Newark Liberty International Airport, New Jersey. The aircraft flipped onto its back and subsequently burned following a landing attempt from an unstabilized flare. The 5 occupants survived with injuries. On September 2, 1998, Swissair Flight 111 MD-11 HBIWF crashed into the Atlantic Ocean near Halifax, Nova Scotia while en route from New York City to Geneva, Switzerland. All 229 people on board perished. The cause of the crash was determined to have been a fire caused by improper wiring of passenger entertainment system units added for Swissair. The fire started at the front of the aircraft and quickly grew uncontrollable, attributed partly to the poor flame retardant properties of its metallized mylar insulation. On April 15, 1999, Korean Air Cargo Flight 6316, MD-11 registration number HL7373, crashed shortly after takeoff while operating cargo flight KS6000. After takeoff, the flight was cleared to climb to 4,900 feet 1,500 meters. The aircraft climbed to 4,500 ft 1,400 m. Due to confusion on the flight deck, the captain thought the aircraft was too high and needed to descend. The captain pushed the control column abruptly forward, causing the MD-11 to enter a rapid descent from which it could not be recovered. All 3 occupants on board and 5 people on the ground were killed. On August 22, 1999, China Airlines Flight 642, an MD-11 operated by subsidiary Mandarin Airlines, crashed while landing at Hong Kong Airport during Typhoon Sam that exceeded its crosswind specifications, also flipping onto its back and burning. 3 passengers were killed. On October 17, 1999, FedEx Express Flight 87, MD-11 and 522 FE, was written off after landing at Subic Bay International Airport. The aircraft was operating from Shanghai Hongqiao International Airport. Upon landing, the aircraft rolled down the whole length of the runway before plunging into the bay where it was completely submerged except for the cockpit. An excessive approach and landing speed was pointed out as probable cause of the accident. On March 23, 2009, FedEx Express Flight 80 MD-11 FN 526 FE crashed at Narita International Airport, Japan while landing in windy conditions. Airport surveillance video showed the aircraft becoming airborne again after the first touchdown, then impacting nose first the second time and turning onto its left side, erupting into flames. The impact flipped the aircraft upside down. The aircraft finally came to rest some distance left of the runway. The two flight crew members were killed. On November 28, 2009, Aviant Aviation Flight 324 MD-11 FCBAVC/N 48408 crashed on takeoff from Shanghai Pudong International Airport. The aircraft was written off. On July 27, 2010, Lufthansa Cargo Flight 8460 AMD-11F crash-landed in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. The two pilots survived. On February 13, 2016, Western Global Airlines Flight 4425 was involved in a stowaway incident that was discovered when the plane had stopped in Harare Airport, Zimbabwe for a fuel stop en route to King Shaka International Airport, South Africa from Munich, Germany. The deceased stowaway was located in the plane's cargo hold after ground staff at Harare noticed blood dripping from one of the MD-11's cargo doors. The crew initially stated that they believed the blood to have come from a bird strike which had been noticed by ground staff at Munich Airport earlier in the plane's journey, but a body of a man who had stowed away on the flight was discovered shortly after the plane and its crew were seized by Zimbabwean authorities. On June 6, 2016, UPS Airlines Flight 61 MD-11F and 277 up suffered a runway excursion and nose gear collapse in a takeoff accident at Seoul Incheon International Airport (ICN). Takeoff from runway 33L was aborted and the aircraft continued past the end of the runway. The nose gear collapsed and the No. 1 and 3 engines contacted the grass. The flight was bound for Ted Stevens Anchorage International Airport. All four crew members survived without injury. The aircraft was written off. Safety problems. The MD-11 has had problems with its flight control systems that have resulted in multiple accidents and incidents since the aircraft's introduction. The initial design of the slat/flap lever in the cockpit left it prone to being accidentally dislodged by crew in flight. The defect has been corrected since 1992. In the early 2000s, Boeing improved the flight control software at the urging of the FAA to reduce the possibility of violent unintentional pitch movements. In an effort to improve fuel efficiency, McDonnell Douglas designed the MD-11's center of gravity to be much farther aft than other commercial aircraft. There was also a fuel ballast tank in the MD-11's horizontal stabilizer since its tailplane was smaller than the DC-10 tends to improve fuel efficiency, but this was found to inhibit the MD-11's crosswind performance. These design features, coupled with standard landing speeds 20-30 knots 35-55 km/h faster than comparable aircraft, significantly reduce the MD-11's margin for error during the takeoff and landing phases, making it more difficult to handle than the smaller DC-10. A number of operators have introduced special training to assist crews in safely handling the MD-11's critical phases of flight. Because of the aft center of gravity, several incidents have occurred where the aircraft has been overloaded with cargo and tipped back on its tail, leaving the nose gear off the ground. Specifications. Deliveries.